Right now, as you are watching this video, U.S. Marines are on their way to the Middle East. They are set to arrive this Friday. At the same time, President Donald Trump is telling the world that America and Iran are talking, that a deal is possible, that peace might actually be within reach. But here is the thing that nobody is saying out loud. Iran is calling all of it a lie. Tehran's own officials are going on record and saying, no talks have happened, none, zero. So who is telling the truth, and what happens this Friday when those Marines land? And there is still no deal on the table? That is exactly what we are going to break down today, and I want you to stay with me because this is not just a story about missiles and military movements. This is a story about the future of global energy, the future of your gas prices, the future of the world economy, and a 5-day window that might be the most important 5 days in modern history. We are now on day 25 of the U.S.-Israel war on Iran. 25 days. And in those 25 days, the world has changed in ways that most people are still trying to process. Iran has fired thousands of missiles and drones at Israel, at U.S. bases, at Gulf nations. Over 82,000 civilian structures inside Iran have been damaged or destroyed. The death toll in Iran alone has crossed 1,500 people. In Lebanon, over 1,000 people have been killed, including more than 118 children. 13 U.S. soldiers have lost their lives. And across the Gulf, in Bahrain, UAE, Saudi Arabia, Kuwait, ordinary people are waking up to air raid sirens every single morning. This is not a regional conflict anymore. This is a war that is reshaping the entire planet. And if you think this does not affect you sitting here in America, just wait until I get to the part about the Strait of Hormuz, oil prices, and what the International Energy Agency is now calling worse than the 1970s oil shocks. Stay with me. And before we go further, if you have not already, hit that like button right now and subscribe to Unlocked History Hub. We cover these kinds of stories in depth, with context and analysis that you simply will not find in a 2-minute news clip. The subscribe button is right there, and it takes 2 seconds, and it means you never miss a breakdown like this one. Also, for the very latest updates, breaking news, new developments as they happen, join our WhatsApp channel. The link is right there in the description below. We post updates as the situation develops, so you are always ahead of the story. Now let us go back to the beginning, because to understand this moment, this Friday deadline, these so-called talks, these Marines, you need to understand how we got here. On February 28, 2026, the United States and Israel launched coordinated strikes on Iran. It was a massive operation. In the very first wave of attacks, Iran's supreme leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei was killed. His son, Mojtaba Khamenei, was immediately chosen to succeed him. Iran's entire military and political establishment went into emergency mode, and within hours, Tehran began firing back at Israel, at American bases across the region, at Gulf states hosting U.S. forces. Now, some people in America looked at this and thought, okay, this will be over in a few days. Iran cannot sustain a war against the United States and Israel, but 25 days later, that assumption has been completely shattered. Iran is still firing every single day, and not just randomly. Iran has been systematically targeting energy infrastructure, airports, military command centers, and now, most dangerously, the Strait of Hormuz. The Strait of Hormuz. Let me tell you why this waterway matters more than almost any other piece of geography on Earth right now. About 20% of the world's daily oil supply passes through this narrow stretch of water between Iran and Oman. For America's allies in Asia, India gets 40% of its crude oil through the strait. Japan, South Korea, China, all deeply dependent. If Iran shuts it down completely or even partially disrupts it, the global economy does not just slow down, it stops. And the ripple effect hits American consumers directly, at the gas pump, at the grocery store, in heating bills this winter. Iran knows this. That is why controlling the Strait of Hormuz is now reportedly one of Iran's core demands in any potential negotiation. Think about that for a moment. Iran is not just asking for sanctions relief anymore. According to senior sources in Tehran speaking to Reuters, Iran's demands now include guarantees against future attacks, financial compensation for war damages, no limits on its ballistic missile program, and control, or at least influence, over the Strait of Hormuz. These are not the demands of a country that is losing. These are the demands of a country that believes it is in a strong enough position to dictate terms. And this brings us to the central tension of this week. Trump announced a 5-day pause on strikes against Iranian power plants and energy infrastructure. He said the U.S. and Iran had held very good and productive conversations. He even said Iran had agreed to zero nuclear enrichment. In Memphis, Trump told a crowd, and I want you to think about this carefully, he said, "They want peace. They've agreed they will not have a nuclear weapon. I think there is a very good chance." Those were his words. Iran's parliament speaker Mohammad Khalibaf responded directly. He said, "No talks with the U.S. have taken place." He called Trump's statements fake news aimed at influencing financial and oil markets. Iran's Revolutionary Guard went even further, calling Trump a deceitful American president and saying his, quote, "contradictory behavior will not make us lose sight of the battlefront." Now, I want to give you my honest read on this because I think there is something important being missed in most of the coverage. The question is not simply whether talks are happening or not. The real question is, what kind of signal is Trump sending and why now? Here is what I think is going on. A CNN source with knowledge of the Iranian side confirmed that there has been outreach, messages passed through intermediaries, to explore whether a deal is possible. Iran has not said it will never talk. What Iran has said is that no formal negotiations have taken place. These are two different things. And in diplomacy, that gap between outreach and formal talks is often where deals are quietly being built. But here is where it gets complicated. 3 senior Israeli officials told Reuters that they believe Iran is unlikely to accept Washington's demands, and those expected demands, limits on Iran's nuclear program and its ballistic missile program, are exactly the things Iran says it will never accept. So right now you have Trump projecting confidence, Iran projecting defiance, Israel projecting skepticism, and U.S. Marines arriving on Friday into a region that is still very much at war. Let me now talk about the human cost of this war, because I think this is the part that gets lost in all the geopolitical analysis. And it matters. It matters a lot. Inside Iran, over 82,000 civilian structures have been damaged or destroyed. Real homes, real families, real neighborhoods. The Iranian Red Crescent has documented the scale of destruction, and it is staggering. Cities like Isfahan, Shiraz, Tehran, Khorramshahr. These are ancient populated cities with millions of civilians. Strikes have been reported in industrial zones, near civilian bridges, near hospitals. At least 1,047 confirmed civilians have been killed in Iran, including 214 children. Those are the verified numbers. The actual toll is likely higher. In Lebanon, the situation is equally devastating. Over 1,000 people have been killed since March 2nd. More than 1 million people. Let that sink in. More than 1 million Lebanese citizens have been forced from their homes. Israel has destroyed bridges, demolished villages near the southern border, and its defense minister Israel Katz has explicitly compared the approach to what was done in Gaza. He used the phrase defensive buffer, the same language used to justify the clearing of entire neighborhoods in Gaza. On Monday night, an Israeli airstrike hit an apartment in a mountainous area southeast of Beirut. Among the dead, a 3-year-old girl. In Iraq, at least 61 people have been killed. The U.S. struck the headquarters of the Popular Mobilization Forces in Anbar province, killing at least 14 people, including a senior PMF operations commander. Iran separately fired ballistic missiles at Kurdish Peshmerga forces in northern Iraq, killing 6 people and wounding 30. Iraq's presidency condemned both attacks, calling the U.S. strike a criminal attack and a violation of sovereignty, while also denouncing Iran's targeting of the Peshmerga. Iraq is being hit from both sides, and the Iraqi government is essentially powerless to stop it. Across the Gulf, the numbers are shocking. Bahrain's air defenses have intercepted 153 missiles and 301 drones since the war began. Kuwait triggered air raid sirens 7 times in a single night. Saudi Arabia intercepted around 20 drones targeting its eastern province, the region that holds the majority of the kingdom's oil infrastructure. The UAE reported a Moroccan civilian contractor was killed in Bahrain during an Iranian missile attack. 5 UAE Defense Ministry personnel were wounded. These are not distant statistics. These are the operational realities of a war that has now spread across an entire region, involves multiple nations, and is showing zero signs of stopping on its own. Now let me talk about something that I think deserves much more attention in the American conversation: the economic impact. Because this war is not just killing people in the Middle East, it is quietly damaging economies across the entire world, including right here in the United States. Oil prices are still more than 40% higher than they were before the war started on February 28th. Brent crude briefly touched $114 a barrel last weekend before falling sharply after Trump's announcement of the 5-day pause. But it is now back above $100. Before this war, it was trading around $70. That gap, $30 to $40 extra dollars per barrel, is being paid by consumers, by businesses, by airlines, by shipping companies, by farmers. Everyone. The International Energy Agency's executive director said the global economy is facing a threat, and I want you to hear this clearly, worse than the 1970s oil shocks. The 1970s oil shocks caused recessions across the Western world. They caused double-digit inflation. They caused massive unemployment. The IEA is saying this could be worse. Europe is already feeling it. New PMI survey data shows that the UK economy has stalled in March. Output across the Eurozone has slowed to near stagnation. Business confidence has collapsed. Firms' costs are rising at the fastest rate in over 3 years. Lufthansa has extended its suspension of flights to Iran and large parts of the Middle East. Some routes are suspended until October 2026. Global supply chains that run through the region are disrupted. Iran halted natural gas exports to Turkey after Israel struck the South Pars gas field. Turkey gets about 14% of its gas from Iran. That 14% now has to come from somewhere else, which means higher prices, higher competition, and higher costs downstream. And then there is the oil trading story from this past Monday that I think should genuinely alarm people. Traders placed bets worth over $500 million on crude oil prices, specifically on a price drop, just 15 minutes before Trump posted his announcement of the 5-day pause. 15 minutes. The data shows 100 lots of Brent and WTI crude futures changing hands in a single minute, dominated by selling. After Trump's post, oil crashed 15% in minutes. Brent went from $112 to around $99. WTI fell from near $99 to $86. Whoever made those trades in that 15-minute window made extraordinary amounts of money. The SEC, the White House, the CFTC, the major exchanges, none of them have commented. I'm not saying I know what happened, but I am saying the timing is extraordinary and it deserves a serious investigation. Now let us come back to the core question of this video. What happens if talks collapse this Friday when the Marines arrive? This is where I want to give you my honest analysis. The 5-day pause was a signal, probably the most significant diplomatic signal Trump has sent since the war began. It told Iran, and it told the world, that Washington is not completely committed to total military victory. There is a ceiling to how far the U.S. is willing to escalate. Trump does not want to destroy Iran's power grid, or at least not yet, because doing so would send oil to $150, $160 a barrel, and the economic blowback would hit American consumers before the midterms. Iran, on the other hand, is calculating that time is on its side. Its new security chief, Mohammad Bagher Zolgadar, a senior former Revolutionary Guards commander, was just appointed to replace the assassinated Ali Larijani. Iran's armed forces commander has publicly stated they will continue until full victory. The Revolutionary Guards say they are at their highest state of readiness, and Iran's hardened negotiating position, demanding compensation, missile program protections, and Hormuz control, suggests Tehran is not entering any talks from a position of weakness. Pakistan has offered to host talks. China has called for immediate dialogue. India's Prime Minister Modi spoke with Trump and called for de-escalation. Germany's foreign minister called Trump's announcement a fragile beginning. Russia is watching the Caspian Sea nervously. The entire international community is pushing for dialogue. And yet, missiles are still flying. Strikes are still happening. On Tuesday alone, Iran fired missiles at Israel at least 8 times. If the 5-day window closes without a breakthrough, the U.S. faces a choice that has no good options. Strike Iranian power plants and risk a massive oil price surge, a global recession, and potentially drawing in more regional actors. Or extend the pause and risk appearing weak, which emboldens Iran and potentially undermines Israel's war objectives. Netanyahu has already said Israel will protect its vital interests in every situation, which tells you that Israel is not simply going to accept a U.S.-Iran deal that does not meet Israeli security demands. In my view, the most realistic scenario this week is not a deal. It is a continued, fragile, informal back-channel, messages through intermediaries, signals through third parties, while the military situation on the ground continues to evolve. The real danger is not that talks collapse. The real danger is that both sides keep saying talks are happening or not happening, while actual military operations keep moving forward until something escalates beyond the point of easy control. That is how wars expand, not with one big decision, but with a series of smaller ones, each one slightly beyond the last. This is day 25. There are people in Iran, in Lebanon, in Iraq, in Israel, in the Gulf states, millions of people, who are going to sleep tonight not knowing if tomorrow will bring a ceasefire or a new wave of strikes. There are American families whose sons and daughters are in that region right now, and who will be joined by more Marines this Friday. This story is not over. And it will not be over by the end of this week, no matter what Trump posts on Truth Social. That is why we do this at Unlocked History Hub. We believe you deserve the full picture, not just the headline, not just the 2-minute clip, but the real context, the real stakes, and an honest analysis of what is happening and why. If this video gave you that, then do me a favor right now. Drop a comment below. Tell me, do you think Trump and Iran will reach a deal before this 5-day window closes? I read every single comment. And share this video with someone who needs to understand what is actually happening in the Middle East right now. Not the simplified version, the real version. This is Unlocked History Hub. Stay informed, stay sharp, and we will see you in the next one.